All right, children, we're going to read some more of Abby Lost at Sea. When Pa came in for dinner on their last night in Pueblo de San Jose, the rest of the family was already seated at the table. After prayer, they ate their sandwiches off the clean wooden tabletop, since the plates had already been packed. "Tell me, Princess, did you see Luke today?" Thomas asked his quiet older daughter. Abby's blue eyes looked more solemn than usual. "No, his aunt said he had gone hunting with Sparks. Maybe he'll come by to see us tomorrow morning before we leave." "Possibly," Pa responded. "But that will be awfully early. We have to catch the ship in Alviso by 4 o'clock a.m. Abby knew that they would take the barge down the nearby Guadalupe River to Alviso, and from there they would sail into San Francisco Bay and the waiting Pacific Ocean. Then it was only a matter of weeks until they crossed the Pacific and settled in a new land. All of her life she had dreamed of adventure. Now she didn't want any part of it. Abby watched the sun sink behind the western mountains from her bedroom. It would be the last sunset she'd ever see from this home. 7 hours later, Abby woke to her mother's gentle touch. She leapt out of bed. "Has Luke come?" she asked as she slipped out of her nightclothes and into her underthings and brown wool dress. "Not yet, dear." Sarah complained about being rolled out of bed. "Too cold, Mama," she said, stomping her foot. But as her mother helped her strip off her nightdress, she quit complaining and hurriedly dressed. "I've packed our breakfast and we can eat once we board the barge," Mom said. George, one of Mr. Morgan's workers, drove up in the flatbed and helped Thomas load up the trunks in the pre-dawn dark. In just a few minutes, they would be piling in and moving away from home, Abby realized. She threw on her blue wool coat and stepped out into the frosty October shadows. Her eyes searched the road leading toward town, but no sounds of approaching horse hooves broke the morning stillness. When the loading was finished, Thomas beckoned Sarah and lifted her up into the flatbed wagon where she perched on a trunk. "Ready for your adventure, little britches?" he teased. "Yes, Pa." Ma came out then with a lantern in one hand. "Well, I've checked everything, and there isn't a thing we've left behind," she said, blowing out the lantern. She smiled as her large husband lifted her easily into the front seat. "Nothing we've left behind," Abby thought in misery. "Only Luke." "Pa, I need to go check something," Abby said as she ducked into the front door and hurried to her bedstead. She peered out the window that looked west toward town. No one moved on the road. He wasn't coming after all. As she came out the door, she worked hard not to let the tears spill. Pa lifted her into the back of the buckboard and jumped into the front. "Let's go, George," he said, eager like Sarah to be off on the adventure. George gently slapped the reins on the horse's rumps, and the wagon lurched forward. Ma turned and reached for Abby's hand, squeezing it tightly. "I think it was too hard for Luke to have to say goodbye again," she said tenderly. Abby nodded mutely. A lump had spread up in her throat as tears trembled on her lower lashes. Her life was over. Nothing would ever be the same again. She was leaving behind her friends, her school, and her church. They were moving to some horrible island where she would be isolated on her uncle's miserable ranch. This is not how she and Luke had planned it. She watched the little house and Luke somewhere in the distance disappear into darkness. And that is the end of chapter 5, and next time we will read chapter 6. Have a wonderful night.